The arena of Veltraxis was sacred across 12 star systems. It wasn't just a place of combat. It was a spectacle of glory, where champions of every known species battled to prove their honor before billions. Gladiators trained for decades just to survive one match. And so, when the announcement hit that a human, a species barely registered on the Intergalactic Combat Index, had volunteered to compete, the galaxy laughed. Even the arena AI, notoriously humorless, flagged the entry with a query. Error? Combatant rating, below threshold. But the request was real. The human, a man named Jack Arden, had signed the waivers, cleared the physicals, and showed up in person. When asked why, he simply said, "Heard there was a fight. Thought I'd join." The other fighters mocked him during the pre-battle assembly. "Which planet grows such soft-skinned fools?" hissed a Krellic brute, its tusks dripping with sap blood. "You'll be red mist before round one ends," chuckled a Tharn duelist, spinning twin blades made of bone glass. Jack just grinned and kept eating from a pouch of peanuts he'd smuggled in. The only being who didn't mock him was the old Zenthari quartermaster, who simply observed from afar, expression unreadable. On the first day of combat, billions tuned in expecting a massacre. The arena's betting pools placed Jack's survival odds at 0.03%. He stepped into the sunlit Coliseum wearing no armor, just reinforced cargo pants, a vest, and a taped-up pair of combat boots. No shield, no energy blade, just his fists and a rusty pipe he found in the waiting chamber. Across from him stood a Furlokian juggernaut, a towering, insectoid beast clad in exoskeletal armor, wielding a plasma hammer the size of a hovercar. The signal blared. The match began, and within 12 seconds, the juggernaut was twitching on the ground, its joints shattered, its weapon bent in half. Jack stood over it, pipes still humming from the impact. The crowd was silent. Then someone laughed. Then the entire stadium erupted. After the match, Jack was asked what strategy he used. He shrugged. Aim for weak spots. Move fast. Don't die. When pressed further, he added with a smirk, "It's not about how hard you hit. It's where and when." The arena AI flagged his combat rating again. This time it read, "Update. Threat level unknown." Recalculating. After the first match, many still believed it was a fluke. The Furlokian had been old, slow. Maybe Jack got lucky. So in round 2, the organizers threw him against a Dravic pack hunter, a genetically modified predator bred solely for arena deathmatches. It had 4 arms, acidic saliva, and bone hooks protruding from its elbows. It had never lost. The match was supposed to be over in under a minute. It ended in 42 seconds. Jack didn't even break a sweat. He baited the Dravic into lunging, then used its own momentum to snap 2 limbs at once. Then he jammed its mouth shut with a snapped-off pipe piece and stomped its kneecaps in. He didn't celebrate, didn't pose. He just walked out. Back in the fighter's bay, the mood shifted. The mocking stopped. Now, they stared at him like one might a malfunctioning war drone. Unpredictable, unstable, deadly. The Tharn duelist who had once laughed now kept his distance. He whispered to his kin, "He doesn't fight like a warrior. He fights like someone who's seen worse than death." The arena announcers didn't know what to do. Viewership tripled. Some called him the Rust Blood. Others, Meat Ghost. One commentator dubbed him the Shadow Pipe because of the twisted metal he seemed to always carry. But Jack didn't care. He wasn't there for fame. He never smiled when the crowd screamed. He wasn't performing. He was surviving. By round 4, it was clear. This human was something else. They threw the best at him. A shielded grav beast. A psychic crawler. A twin-bonded dueling pair. Even a swarm of mind-linked drones. He beat them all. Sometimes with a weapon. Sometimes with nothing. Sometimes with silence. After one match, a younger alien fighter approached him in the halls. "You don't seem to enjoy this. Why do you keep fighting?" Jack looked at him, and for a moment, something cracked in his expression. Then he said, almost softly, "Because I've already fought worse. On Earth, we don't need reasons. Sometimes we fight just because someone has to stand back up." That night, the arena AI updated his profile again. Warning, subject exhibits nonlinear combat logic. No predictive model successful. Recommend observation. Avoid direct engagement. The galaxy no longer laughed. They watched, and whispered, and feared. By the 7th round, Jack Arden was no longer the human. He was the anomaly. His matches were studied in military academies. Alien warlords paused campaigns just to watch his fights. Some began to fear he wasn't just a human. Maybe he was enhanced, biomodified, a weapon in disguise. But tests showed nothing. No implants. No gene tweaks. Just raw, scarred, unmodified humanity. And still, he won. Every time. To prove it was no fluke, the Arena Council made a bold decision. Bring back the Juggernaut. The same for Lokian from the first match. Repaired, enhanced, augmented with a neural combat rig, speed boosts, and rage chemicals flowing through its bloodstream. Its pride demanded revenge. The match was broadcast to 80 billion viewers across 7 sectors. The rematch began in thunder. The Juggernaut roared across the arena, now twice as fast and 10 times as brutal. Jack didn't run. He waited. At the last moment, he dodged left, planted a foot, and drove a sharpened arena spike under the Juggernaut's armpit, through a seam in its new armor. The enhanced beast crashed to the ground. Not dead, but paralyzed. One strike, one weakness, one human. The crowd didn't cheer. They were silent, because now it was clear. Jack Arden wasn't lucky. He was deliberate, focused, unstoppable, asterisk asterisk. And maybe, just maybe, humanity itself was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Later that cycle, a high counselor was caught on a private transmission saying, "If one human can do this with nothing but grit and a pipe, what happens if Earth decides to send warriors?" In the locker room, Jack sat alone, sharpening a piece of bent alloy into a blade. He didn't enjoy the fights. He didn't care about the glory. But when an aide asked him what he did care about, Jack finally answered, "Every time I win, some kid out there, human or alien, realizes they don't have to be the strongest, just the one who refuses to give up." The Arena AI updated again. Classification, iconic threat. Status, irregular pattern. Cross-reference Earth military archives, access denied. The legend was no longer forming. It was spreading. Jack Arden had gone from an unknown wildcard to the centerpiece of the Galactic Games. The arena's ratings shattered historical records. But now, the arena masters had a problem. He was too good. No one wanted to fight him. Some dropped out. Others demanded extra pay. A few resigned. There was talk of banning him. Quietly. Politically. To preserve competitive balance. But the people wouldn't allow it. He had become a symbol, not of violence, but of resistance. And so, they made a choice. A final match. The Apex round. A duel only fought once every 100 years. One fighter. One arena king. The reigning champion. Vorthax the Eternal, a 9-time victor who had never bled in the arena. His armor was grown from black star matter. His axe had a name written in the lost language of suns. He accepted the challenge immediately, and the galaxy held its breath. Before the match, reporters asked Jack how he planned to fight a living legend. He just muttered, "Every legend bleeds." The duel began under artificial starlight. Vorthax towered above Jack, his presence warping the air. He spoke once. "You are nothing, human." Jack didn't reply. They clashed. Steel met fury. Skill met power. Vorthax struck like a collapsing star. Jack moved like a shadow in a burning field. He took hits. Got knocked down. Cracked ribs. Torn arm. Blood on the sand. But he got back up. Every time. Until finally, as the king raised his axe for a final strike, Jack jammed a sharpened spike straight into the breathing seam under Vorthax's chin. One. Perfect. Shot. The champion dropped. Jack stood over him, chest heaving, eyes locked on the stunned crowd. Silence. Then, a roar. Not of bloodlust. Of shock. Of awe. Of legend. Later, Jack was offered riches, planets, even a fleet. He refused them all. When asked what he did want, he said, "A ticket home. And maybe a drink." The Arena AI's final update read, Status, champion. Classification, cultural catalyst. Influence, uncontainable. Jack Arden disappeared after his final match. No farewell speech. No ceremony. Just a man walking away, bloodied and breathing, into a shuttle bound for nowhere in particular. But the galaxy couldn't forget him, because something had changed. Across star systems, young fighters trained differently, less about strength, more about resilience. Military academies studied his every move, only to discover they couldn't predict him. He wasn't just strong. He was human, and that scared the galaxy more than any weapon. On Vasker 7, a young miner told off a cartel thug with nothing but a metal pipe and Jack's story in his head. On the moon of Kethra, warlords paused their war to watch a replay of the human versus the eternal. And on a quiet research vessel orbiting a dead star, a scientist whispered, "If one of them can do that, what happens when Earth stops holding back?" Rumors spread. Some said Jack was training others. Some said he was dead. Some said Earth had thousands like him, hidden in deep bunkers, waiting. No one really knew. But in bar halls, in slums, in high councils and battlefield bunkers, one sentence echoed like a prophecy. You can laugh at a human once. Back on Earth, Jack sat alone in a quiet bar. He watched the arena highlights on an old screen, someone else's voice narrating his fights like myth. He didn't smile. He just sipped his drink. Someone asked if that was really him. Jack looked over, eyes tired but steady. I was just a guy who refused to stay down. And that was how the galaxy learned. Never underestimate a species that climbs, falls, and climbs again. Because sometimes the joke becomes the legend.